So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this bridge plate, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can rotate these saddles here to be able to get access to the screws underneath to be able to replace this pickup, and it looks like I'm going to be just fine doing that. I was a little worried that I may have to adjust, lengthen the intonation screws, but it looks like just by flipping these up I can get access to it. There we go. I'm going to put that in my bridge tray. Okay, this is the last screw here. We had a total of 4. This is where the bridge is going to come loose. Okay, I'm going to just put those back. Now I'm going to lightly pull this up. Bring a cloth here. And I want to pull the wires. I don't want to just pull it from here because I don't want these pickups to come loose. So what I also see here, this is really important, is there's a bridge ground wire that's kind of loosely placed right on here. So I want to make sure that that wire, when I replace it, that wire is in its same spot. It's basically sandwiches that that wire with the plate there. So just kind of keep a note of that. Some teles that it's connected in other places, so wherever it's connected, keep an eye out for that. You want to make sure that stays connected to that bridge, or you're going to get some hum in your guitar. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the pickup, and this is pretty simple, just undoing these screws here. Okay, so now I have the pickup out, and it's pretty easy to tell the orientation because one side of the pickup's got 2 screws and the other side has 1 screw. Now I'm just going to set that off to the side here, and I'm going to grab my new vintage broadcaster set. So you can see here on the new set we have 2 wires here. Again, there's in this set there was the blue wire was the ground, or this in case that's going to be a black wire, and then this yellow wire is going to be our lead wire. So again, I want to make sure that the orientation is correct, making sure the 2 screws are here and the 1 screw. And one thing I want to point out here, in our sets here we do include some additional spacers, these rubber spacers, for both the bridge and the neck pickup. So in case you lose something, you'll have some extra screws and some of these rubber spacers here. So these ones look pretty good, so I'm just going to keep the ones that I have already, and I'm just going to line things up and screw that back in. Okay, so I got all of these started, so now I can screw these in and then measure it to the height that I had originally documented. So I'm going to set these to the same height as the old pickups. Okay, so this is pretty close to the old spec measurement. So now what I can do is I can thread this through, and I'm going to actually put back the plate here. I want to make sure that that ground wire stays there. I'm just going to thread this through. So what I can see here on this one, as I pull these new wires through, that ground wire wants to go with it. Making sure that. So now I'm going to hold that ground wire in place. I want to make sure that it stays where it needs to. So now I'm going to put back these screws here. I'm going to hold this down, making sure that that ground wire stays in place. I can still make pickup height adjustments even after I remove this plate, because I can adjust these 3 screws here at any time. Okay, so I'm not going to screw that down all the way. I'm going to kind of get all these screws more or less snug in there, and then I'll do a final pass of tightening these screws down. And you want these pretty snug, but you want to be careful not to strip these either. So just take your time with this. You don't want to scratch anything as you're doing it. Saddle's back in there, looking good. Now I can attach the bridge, ground, and lead wires. You don't necessarily have to do it for these types of wires, but it's just kind of, I get into the habit of tinning my wires. So I'm going to just go ahead and tin it. It just makes it a little bit easier to make, to bond to the terminals or the back of the potentiometers. Just put a little bit of solder on this and it should be good here. So what I may want to do with this terminal is just to add a little bit more solder to it, just a little bit, and that should be enough for this wire. So I'm going to take this bridge hot wire and just heat up one side of the terminal, push it through, hold it in place. You don't want to move around too much because that could break the joint, and that's looking really nice there. Great. Now I'm going to add the bridge wire here. Just going to heat up the solder that's already there, and I think that's going to be enough solder for this. Making sure everything is nicely liquefied. I'm going to hold it down with my tweezers. Great. It's got a nice connection. Great. We got that one together.